Okay. All right, if everybody's ready, we're going to start 1 minute early. Meeting is called to order. Please turn and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. If you haven't turned on your microphones, commissioners, you can do that now. Okay. All right. Can I get an approval of agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda for July 6th, 2021.
I'll second.
What? Two of those. Okay. All right. Gardner?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right. Let's see, minutes of last month. Anybody have any corrections, changes?
I'll make a motion. Oh, go ahead, Mark. I'm always second. I'll make a motion we approve the minutes from the June 21st Planning Commission meeting. I'll second.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved. Seeing no unfinished business before us, we'll move right into new business. And that would be minor subdivision, 21005 K. Smith minor subdivision. And is the applicant here? Okay. And your name, sir?
My name is George Hall.
Okay.
Basically, it's a simple two-lot minor subdivision, basically at the corner of Rockefeller and
South
Street.
It's been a while. I mean, this has been through how many different people reviewing it and whatnot. So, other than we got a ratification consent release that's being worked on through the bank to get taken care of, we know that. There's a couple of little minor things with the plat we have no problem with. Otherwise, if you have any questions, we'll answer whatever we can.
Okay. I'm going to let, give us our staff report here. Dan, I'm sorry.
No problem, sir.
Oh, I should introduce, in case you guys don't know, we have a new director of planning, and that is Dan Victoria here. Okay, so congratulations, Dan, on your new job.
Thank you, sir.
All right, okay, go ahead.
All right, so department recommendations. The department has reviewed the application and found it to be a complete and true representation of the request as stated herein. The department finds that all minimal requirements per the Fremont County subdivision regulations will be satisfied by this application. There is a waiver request. It's a deferment of the drainage plan until the time of development. That's been reviewed by the county engineer. There's no issues with that. Contingency items would be an access permit for Lot 2, the executed ratification, release, and consent form, and just a couple little minor changes to the plat, no big deal. And that's it.
Okay. Do you have any photos for us? Or?
I probably do. Give me a second here, sir.
I think we've all been out there probably, so if you don't have them, that's fine. That's all right, don't worry about it. I think we've probably all driven by out there, hopefully. All right, commissioners, questions for Mr. Hall?
We've got a question for Dan, probably.
Okay.
In the contingencies, you're listing the contingency, the access permit for Lot 2.
Yep.
Lot 2 is the one that's right on the corner of South and Rockefeller.
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 I agree.
Okay. The lot that's going to have the new development on it, that's the one that would need access.
Right, that's what I thought. Well,
Yeah.
that's Lot 1,
All right. So that'll
according to
be-
what I see.
Okay. Yeah, I got it crossed out.
So that should be changed then.
Okay. So yeah,
Instead of
it'll be
lot,
an access permit for lot
instead of Lot 2, it should state Lot 1.
Okay.
Will that be at the time of the building permit or?
That would be the time of building permit to be able to determine what the correct number would be based off of where the driveway is going to be coming in.
Okay, so why would that be a part of the subdivision at this point in time and not part of the building permit?
So, as far as, that's actually a good question, sir. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to determine the access permit, the correct number for the access until you actually declared it when you're going to be building.
Why is that?
What this looks like-
contingency for the subdivision?
What this meant to say would be that an access permit would be required for that lot when it was done. So yes, that would not be a contingency item.
Okay. All right.
So there's actually two.
There's just the two contingencies, the executed ratification, release and consent, and then a couple of minor changes to the lot.
I was just trying to clarify.
Yeah.
And I've just got one other question. Regarding the plat, normally, and correct me if I'm wrong, normally don't we show the existing buildings on,
We would show where the existing structures are on the plat.
and it doesn't show it on my
They've got a
copy?
version that does.
I'm sorry?
They've got one that does.
Yeah, we have one that does, that might be the one that's cast up there might be, it's obviously not the one that shows the structures.
Well, in the packet, I had to go to, I think it was page 63 or something, and pull up a drawing there for, it was listed under improvement, and that showed, you know, the actual buildings on Lot 2,
Correct, there's no buildings on.
but it didn't on the actual plat itself, so...
Yeah, just there. Just there.
Sorry, I'm trying to pull that up really quick.
Mr. Chair?
Shows the buildings.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
While Dan is doing that, I'd like to address the applicant. The reason why this is a subject for this board is because one of the things staff does is they say this is a true and complete application. And so
I
without,
understand that with no problem.
sure, I'm just trying to explain. You had a question, why is this board adding that as a contingency item? And the answer is because without access being defined, it's not a complete application yet. And what we're doing is we're waiving that, making that a contingency item, allowing the applicant to provide that information at a later date, if that makes sense to you.
He was just saying that that was part of what he wouldn't be able to address the property until the point in time he got the building permit. That is what your planning director said. And that's what I was questioning on.
Okay, understand. Mhm.
I was just wanting a clarification.
Sure.
One way or
That's
the
great.
other here.
This is the time to seek them, if you have questions.
Right now, while we're waiting, anybody else have comments or questions for the applicant? This looks like a pretty straightforward application to be for a minor subdivision.
Just a couple of quick questions here. So I couldn't find a map, but I assume Park Center water goes down Rockefeller?
Yes, it does. There is a house to the north of this property that is serviced by that water service, yes.
Okay. And then obviously it's sized in that, well, that's a public road, right? But just not maintained by the county?
It's a publicly designated road, yes.
Okay.
I'm not going to talk to the maintenance of anything.
Okay.
Mr. Hall, can you turn on your microphone? There's a button right there in the middle. Thank you. That work? Yep. Okay, sorry. That's all right.
Apologize, everyone. We recently switched over the drives in the county building, so a bunch of the files are a little scrambled. So
Okay, all right.
we're trying to be able to cast it, but we're having technical difficulties.
Okay, all right. We always have those with our tablets here. Other questions?
Well, I guess my question is, that the bottom line, though, when we approve this thing, as far as the final plat is concerned, it is going to have to show the existing buildings that are
Right.
on that lot, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even,
Are you saying that the buildings, existing buildings have to be on what gets recorded? That's different than what we've ever done these for the last 25 years.
well, I don't know, I'm not a surveyor, and I just know
It's
that.
just different than what we've done for the last 25 years, that's all
Well,
I
we
can say.
generally have that
Replat.
information shown.
And replat, everyone that I've seen has always had the actual buildings on it, so that's why I questioned it.
Yeah, and I did a drawing and provided it to them that has that information on it, sir.
Well, I think that's something that
With
could,
all the confusion that's been going on and everything, whether that got relayed to you, I have no idea.
Okay, so here is.
There you go.
One of the plats in the application.
Microphone.
There's one of the plats in the application where you can see where the structures are on lot 2. So we do have that plat in the record.
okay, all right, okay. Anyone else have a comment on this one? It looks pretty simple to me. I'm open to a motion. Everybody wants to jump in at once, I guess.
I'll make a motion, we approve,
21005,
there you go, I was on the wrong page.
minor subdivision.
Minor subdivision with the contingency items 2 and 3, but not the access permit for Lot 2 as a contingency item,
And the waiver of the drainage plan?
and the waiver of the drainage plan until time of development.
Okay, all right. I have a motion on the floor.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
No.
Larry?
Aye.
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 Okay, good luck.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
George.
Okay, Parkdale, major modification, conditional use permit 07003. Mr. Bieber, I believe?
And
Who is?
good afternoon, I'm Mike Sheehan.
And I'm Dave Beaver.
This is Dave
Okay,
Bieber.
okay.
We are here representing Martin Marietta and to speak to the modification of the conditional use permit for Parkdale Quarry. Before we get any further, there's one other person in the audience I'd like to recognize, and that's Josh Escobar. Josh is the plant manager at Parkdale, so,
Okay.
and a longtime member of the community, but anyway, wanted to recognize him as one of our team members.
Okay, thank you.
And before we get too much further down the road, Dave and I would like to personally recognize the staff for the job that they've done with getting this all together without the leadership of a director over this time, and they have been very professional and very helpful actually in the process, and we greatly appreciate what they've done.
And congratulations to Dan for being the new planning director, because he's been very, very helpful in shepherding us through this process.
Okay, well, I'm glad they've been helpful to you.
Thank you.
Go ahead and talk to us about your project.
Thank you. So Dave and I have had the pleasure of being associated and with the Parkdale Quarry for a number of years.
Oh, okay.
In 1997, as you guys probably know, the original conditional use permit was issued to a company called Agile Stone. Well, Agile Stone fell into some hard times, and by the year 2002, they were forced into bankruptcy. A group of entrepreneurs bought up the assets out of bankruptcy, reorganized the company under the name of Front Range Aggregates in 2003. 2005, I was hired by the ownership of Front Range Aggregates as the president of Front Range Aggregates, and in 2014, Dave came on as our manager of geology and land management. And then 2015, Front Range Aggregates was purchased by Martin Marietta. Next slide, please. But we're really here today to talk about a condition of that permit which was in the initial permit, and that is that the operator of the Parkdale Quarry must negotiate with the BLM for a land exchange or some other way to move the mining further to the north, away from the Arkansas River and the Highway 50 corridor. We have worked on that for a number of years, but about 3 years ago, we began conversations with a gal named Stephanie Carter at the BLM. Stephanie has a thorough background in mining, and she has a very good understanding of the process of BLM. And through some collaboration with her, we were able to find a way for us to be able to access or be able to mine the BLM property. And so last year, in 2020, that is, Martin Marietta filed application with the BLM to ask for permission to mine the property on the BLM. And the long and the short of that is that they were successful when they were issued a positive environmental impact statement allowing us the right to mine on the BLM property. But specific to the conditional use permit of today, the one that exists right now, in order for Parkdale to mine the property to the north, there's a need to revise this buffer area definition. Right now, that is a buffer area that is a non-disturbance area and designed to separate the neighboring property from our property. But the access to the BLM property is that direction. So we're asking today for that buffer area to be redefined as an area that we could mine through and allow access to the BLM property. Could you go back one slide, please? And in exchange for that, notice this green area down here. Martin Marietta would relinquish the right to mine that area, moving the actual mining, the southern mining boundary of the property approximately 500 feet away from the river and away from the Highway 50 corridor. That would be a permanent distinction that would never be disturbed. But this change to the buffer area would allow us to the quarry to mine through and access the land to the north. So last year, the things that we're asking not to change, though, are the hours of operation, the number of truck traffic that we currently have. The overall use of the site will remain virtually the same. The methods and materials that we're using to mine, and we have been using to mine, will continue. And the permanent blasting schedule is we're not asking to have any change done to that. So we're really just simply asking for the change in the definition of the buffer zone on the northern boundary, and in return to relinquish the 500 feet to the south of the mining boundary.
And for informational purposes, by permit, at least 85% of the material is transported from the quarry by rail. In reality, we're transporting well over 90% by rail, and that will not change.
Okay.
So most of the material leaving the quarry leaves by rail.
Okay.
So I'd like to turn over to Dave to talk about the specifics of the area to the north that we would mine.
So one of the major impacts that were identified, or potential impacts, were visual impacts. And that was the reason for the request that we try and move the mining further to the north at the time that it was originally permitted. And so by allowing this amendment to our CUP, we will be able to move our mining further from Highway 50, mitigate that visual impact, also mitigate some of the potential impacts to recreation. But there are some other things that we will do as part of this process to make mining less obvious than it is today. So we'll use some techniques, one called mine from behind, where we use the topography to screen the mining. We backfill our benches and revegetate them to try and come as close as we can to mimicking the natural terrain and topography in the area. We do leave cliff areas for the bighorn sheep, and that was at the request of Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the Rocky Mountain Bighorn Society, and the Wild Sheep Foundation. And then we use a technique called concurrent reclamation, where as we're done mining within an area, we reclaim that area. And I'll show you a little bit more about those in the next slides. So to explain mine from behind, This is not Parkdale Quarry. This is our specification aggregates quarry just outside of Denver. You're looking from Highway 70 just as you're about to go up into the mountains towards Idaho Springs. We use this example because this is the largest hard rock quarry in the state of Colorado. The mine is actually located here, but we try and make it very difficult to see by utilizing the existing terrain. So what's happening is that the mining operations, we try and use the hills, mine behind them, and then mine forward from behind so that if you see any mining is kept to the minimum of what you see. You can also see this reclamation going in process. And then in the next slide, please, you'll also see the concurrent reclamation. So if you look in this slide, this is the existing terrain, undisturbed mining area at the Parkdale Quarry. This is what we reclaimed in 2017. You can see that with the exception of not having the pinyon and juniper, it looks very similar to this. This area has been reseeded in 2018. It was actually seeded in 2019. This slide is a couple of years old, but this area is now revegetated and blends in with the existing. And then these areas, what happens is we use a dozer to push up the dirt to slope it out. You'll see some existing cliff areas for the sheep here. And then as we mine, we reclaim. And so if you've been by the site, you'll note that from the highway. In addition to doing this with the new, we actually will be using that screening technique, that mine from behind, in combination with this. Next, please. So this is what you currently see, in essence, from Highway 50 at the Parkdale Bridge across County Road 157. The next 5 slides are going to show basically a 100-year mining progression for what the view will be like of the mine as we go forward. So if you can go to the next, please. That's after the phase 1. Next, please. Phase 2. How many of you had trouble seeing the change between those phases? It is, and that's the idea. If it was not obvious, it's not supposed to. And again, remember, this is a 100-year mining progression approximately. Next, please. See a little bit more dramatic change. And then next, please. So hopefully these illustrate how we use that combination of those techniques to keep mining as unobtrusive as we practically can. Next, please.
So one of the things that we take a lot of pride in, that is, from the time Dave and I have been involved with Front Range and now Martin Marietta, is our involvement in the community. And this is just a partial list of some of the things that we do as participants and donors in the county. And some of those that you'll recognize, like the Arkansas River Whitewater Park, we donated several hundred tons of boulders just recently to accomplish that. We've donated materials to a number of county projects, 4-H, the Boys and Girls Club, and Dave and I just spent this last fall several hours rebuilding the sinks in the Boys and Girls Club. So thanks to Dave's expertise as a carpenter. But anyway, we take a lot of pride in that, and Josh and the guys at the quarries spend a good deal of time at the food pantry helping carry food in and out, especially around Christmas time. They donate a good deal of their personal time to help. So Martin Marietta is a very conscientious and involved corporate citizen. Next slide, please. Some of the benefits that we believe the county receives from Martin Marietta and the Parkdale Quarry is resource extraction is one of the highest paying hourly jobs that can be had in Fremont County. The Parkdale Quarry and Associated Rock and Rail employ over 40 people just here in Canyon City. 37 of those actually live in the county. And by the way, that is one of the conditions of the permit, that we do our best to hire employees from the county itself. This amendment would potentially allow up to another 16 to 30 people overtime as things develop. But some interesting specifics here. Each mining job supports an additional 2.6 jobs in the community. That is the parts stores and the other things that where we do business, supports actually over 2.5 other jobs in the community. So the expanded operation would support between $6.2 and $11.5 million in regional economic input, but specific to Fremont County, the operation would raise between $180,000 and $330,000 a year in state and local taxes, in addition to what's being done now. So, and then finally, a lot of people are not terribly familiar with this, but without the Parkdale train, the tourist train would be very likely not be a viable entity. Dave?
So basically, we're asking your approval for this amendment, based on a number of factors. First of all, we believe that the expansion or the amendment does meet the intent of the Fremont County zoning regulations. We believe that this amendment would reduce impacts on adjacent uses by moving minering further away from the Arkansas River and the Highway 50 corridor. The use is an existing use. It's been there for over 20 years, and so it does not change compatibility with surrounding uses. The environmental impacts have been found to be acceptable through the federal environmental impact process. And finally, the project does meet the intent, purpose, and applicable goals of the objectives of the current Fremont County Master Plan as best we can interpret it. And if you gentlemen have any questions, we would be happy to entertain them.
Before we get to you, I'm going to have Dan give us the staff report, then we'll get right back to you, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. So for a summary of the request, they're requesting approval for a major modification to add 1,400 acres to the CUP boundary with a total disturbance area of both private and public of approximately 1,057.31 acres. Total project acreage, including the existing and proposed, is approximately 1,865 acres per the application. The site plan details a slightly different acreage of 1,913.2 total acres. In the BLM proposed competitive minerals sales report for the addition to the Parkdale site, 698 acres of disturbance, with the remaining 702 acres to serve as a perimeter buffer. So of the 1,400 acres that they're hoping to expand, 698 is what's going to be disturbed. The rest is going to be a buffer area around it. They did request 2 waivers, one for landscaping and one for lighting. Contingencies, we had minor changes to a site plan, which they submitted today. So that's not required, and they're waiting on the issuance of the DRMS permit, and the expected permitting date of that is August 16th of this year. Let's see here. For general discussion on this matter, the application is to add approximately 1,400 acres of land to the existing gravel pit operations with the projected 1,057 acres, or 0.31 acres of that total area being disturbed. This additional property is located on BLM land with a 100-year lifespan. The application states 85% or more of the aggregate material will be moved off-site by rail with access to a total of 400 million net tons of aggregate. If approved, the recommended conditions would be those set forth in the original CUP and standard CUP conditions. And at this time, staff cannot see any issues why they wouldn't recommend approval.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, commissioners, I'll open it up to you.
No. The railroad, who owns that? How dependent are you on that? Do you own the rolling stock? Does the railroad own it? What happens if they fold up?
We are joint owners of the railroad. So Rock and Rail Railroad is a wholly owned subsidiary of Martin Marietta.
Okay.
The railroad itself is a partnership called RGX between Rock and Rail Railroad and the Royal Gorge Express. If Royal Gorge Express went away, then Rock and Rail would be 100% owner of that railroad. But we are the owners of that track essentially.
Okay, so you've secured the means to move your product, no
Correct.
matter what?
So no matter what, we have the means to move our product on
Okay.
rail. And we are a Class 3 federally regulated railroad.
Okay. What about stormwater? You've got some creeks running through there. Do you ever have problems with big rains? They got like 5 inches in West Cliff last night.
We have not. We have a stormwater management plan in place that's approved. We have submitted, and the county engineer has reviewed our stormwater plan for the expansion area with detention basins in place at the discharge points adequate to contain the runoff from the discharge area.
John?
Sure, and to continue that discussion, that stormwater permit is a general permit, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's good. For the other board members, a general permit has best management practices specified as how you comply with that permit. A specific permit has limits on discharges, generally an end of the pipe discharge associated with it, which doesn't exist in this project. You also have a current mining permit.
That is correct. We have a current permit for Waiver Request.
And do you know of the approximate last date of your last inspection?
Yeah, Tim Kazier, who is the inspector for this area, was out this past spring.
And did he find any deviations from the permit, with the permit that are still open or that have not been resolved?
He did not find any deviations from the permit.
Thank you.
So to answer your question, we found no deviations.
You also have an air pollution emissions notice with CDPHE. And do they send an inspector to your property?
Josh?
We create the inspection ourselves.
Thank you.
They're required to be trained. There has to be at least one person on site that has had capacity training. And so Josh has more than one, obviously, but they do have that in place.
Those basically self-reporting provisions of your
Unless
permit.
there's a complaint or something.
Correct. Thank you. And right now you are in compliance, as far as you know, with your air permit.
As far as we know, we're in compliance with all permits.
All permits, including your spill control and countermeasures plan.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can you turn on your microphone? They sometimes go off on their own. Okay, other commissioners?
No.
How many acres have you reclaimed? I saw it on the picture. How many have been reclaimed at this point?
You know, I cannot honestly tell you how many we've.
Back up. Several, actually. We can tell you what has been reclaimed. I don't know exactly the acres, but there we go.
There we go.
And as I said, this slide is not current, but basically that entire area in there has been reclaimed and is reseeded.
Josh typically reclaims as soon as possible. As soon as it's dozed
Okay.
and compacted, he has it hydroseeded and as soon as realistically possible.
Okay, so you're doing it pretty quickly then?
Concurrently, like within a few months.
Okay, all right, good. Good to hear that. As you're expanding northward, will any part of the mine be visible from Highway 9?
No.
Okay, all right.
Cactus Mountain shields the whole thing for the life of the operation. We're actually a few hundred, our mining starts a few hundred feet, and I don't know the exact elevation difference, below the crest of Cactus Mountain, so nothing will be visible from Highway 9 as best we can determine.
Okay. And as far as you're moving northward, I know you're going away from the river, and I appreciate that. Will you be going up the sides of the hills so that it will become more visible from Highway 50?
If you can go forward one slide. So as we're mining, and again, you're looking from essentially sitting above Highway 50 at the 157 bridge. We'll be starting back here in the northwest corner. We'll actually be behind the topography in here.
Okay.
As we mine from the backside of those hills forward. So there may be a sliver of mining visible at the peak of the hill, but not at the skyline. The skyline will stay the same. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. Yeah, you can see that there's a little bit missing here. Next slide, please. You can see that a little bit more goes away here. Again, using this terrain in front to screen it. Next. So there, if you noticed on that previous slide, there was a large ridge here. That we'll start mining behind that, mining forward so that we're taking the top down from the back side so as to minimize the visual impact all the way through.
Okay.
The sandstone, if you guys, I'm sure, are quite familiar with Parkdale, that sandstone bluff that's in the front, that will remain there permanently. So,
It looks like has there been some reclamation on that part of the hillside there? It looks like a little
on
bit.
on the sandstone? No, it's undisturbed.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, very good.
So you just mine down to the surrounding elevation, basically for visual aspects? You've taken a ridge out, but you're not going to go
Correct.
down?
Our plan is that when mining is complete, the topography will substantially mimic the topography south of the quarry in Webster Park, including the installation. The drainage areas, we will try and recreate drainages that look similar to the natural drainages that lead north to the Arkansas out of Webster Park on the south side of the Arkansas. So you'll see the sandstone ridge in front very much like those sandstone ridges that are currently in Webster Park. So again, our goal is to try and mimic the existing regional topography in that area.
Okay. I left home, I left home pretty early this morning. Did we get any more comments besides the 2 letters that I received? We got that one, and we got one from Ed. Okay, all right. Nothing, okay, and we haven't had any comments from the public on this outside of those. Okay, all right, surprised, but that's okay. All right, okay, all right, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, does most of this material go to one specific location and then it's distributed from there? I mean, what happens to it after it leaves the quarry and goes on the rails?
It's a good question. So right now, much of the material is transported to an offload site in Colorado Springs. But some of the material has gone to Kansas, some into Denver, not a lot, but some. But we have the ability to do that. But right now, the majority of it is in the Colorado Springs area for the most part.
And it's
Some
distributed?
does stay local, some also is used
Yep.
as railroad ballast. One thing to note about the Parkdale quarry, it is the only rail-served quarry in the state of Colorado. Right now, all of the railroad ballast that is used on the tracks throughout this region here in Canyon City, et cetera, comes either out of Wyoming or out of Oklahoma. So this will be a local source of material for the infrastructure here in this region.
And the end product, typically, where does it go? And what is it used for?
The vast majority of what Parkdale produces is for concrete and asphalt. And some landscape stone, some ballast, a growing percentage of ballast. As Dave pointed out, we're actually quite a ways away from the nearest ballast source. So the BN is finding that this is a very useful source to them locally. But the large majority of it now is concrete and asphalt.
So it goes to a crusher?
Pardon me?
So it goes to a crusher?
Yes, we use jaw crusher and cone crushers to crush the material, yep.
I'm sorry, what is railroad ballast
So it's
specifically?
the rock that goes around the
ties?
ties and
Okay.
underneath the, yeah.
Okay.
And strangely enough, it wears out. Over time with the movement of the track, it wears out, they have to take it up and replace it. So
okay.
believe it or not, it doesn't last forever. And the great thing about the Parkdale quarry is that this is one of the hardest rock sources in the area. So, and the harder the rock is, the longer the ballast lasts. So they're happy to have it.
Thank you.
John?
So, yes, just one more question, although this is outside the jurisdiction of this board. I'm just wondering, you're aware that there was a recent blasting fatality here in Colorado?
I was not aware of that.
And I would suggest it was at I forget the details on it, but it was a quarry situation, and the blaster, I believe, was killed within the last week, 2 weeks or so. So perhaps look to MSHA at some point to get the details out on that. But
Certainly.
thank you.
You bet.
Mark, you got anything? Michael?
Can you just talk to us about remediation and your ongoing, it's an ongoing program, as I heard you say, is that correct?
All right.
It is.
Yeah, so the reclamation, the way that works is, as we're mining down, when we mine, we create what are called benches. It looks like the stair steps that you see in a lot of the quarries. You'll see it in all of them. What we do, which is a little bit unique, is once those stair steps are created, once we're done mining that stair step out, we actually bring in waste material that we've got, the rock, the material we cannot sell, we save. And actually and if we don't have enough of that, we save some of our own material. We come in and we backfill that so that instead of seeing that stair step, you see a slope, and that's packed in with a bulldozer to compact it in. We then come in and we hydroseed that. So we spray that with a seed mix and a mulch. The seed mix is a mix that we've developed in concert with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, BLM, and we had some outside consultation from Audubon Society and some of those people to try and come up with a mix that is as close as people can give us advice on to the native vegetation that was originally here prior to disturbance. That's then placed on that slope and allowed to grow back, with the exception of some areas where we've been asked by CPW and those groups interested in enhancing sheep habitat to leave cliff areas, because bighorn sheep, and this is an area for bighorn sheep, we actually see them all over the quarry on a regular basis. They use those cliff areas as escape cover for escaping from their predators, mountain lions being their primary predator. And so there have actually been some studies done that find that these quarries are some of the best sheep habitat in the country. The sheep actually gravitate towards them because they have these open areas with good fresh vegetation, and then these cliff areas where they can escape. So they prosper there. So that's the whole habitat. And then it also then enhances habitat for other species. In addition to the game species, sheep, mule deer, elk, it also serves the non-game species because of the seed mixes we use. So for instance, the seed mix is biased to help the pollinator species, which, as you probably all know, have been having some issues, especially the pollinator bees and birds. So we work very hard to try and restore to a condition comparable to how we found it, or if possible, better.
So the bottom line is you got a lot of eyeballs looking at you.
Yeah, we're out in the middle of everywhere. We're a member of this community, and we're going to be here for a long time. We want to be a good neighbor.
Martin Marietta would do it whether there were eyeballs looking at it or not. I mean, most people don't know the list of donations that we just showed you. We don't do it for that reason. We do it because it's the right thing to do.
Another question I have, do I understand correctly that where you're currently processing your gravel and your rock, are you moving that further north now with the expansion of this?
Some of it will actually move further north, where the primary, the jaw, the large jaw is intended to be further back in the pit, so some of it will. But a large part of what is currently being processed or used in the process area now will remain there, or in that general area.
Because it's convenience to location.
Yeah, so we need to get it close enough to the track to be able to put it on the train. So
Right.
that's the final product. Yeah.
I would also like to note that we did receive some letters of support, one from Mr. Ed Norton, which was we appreciate his input always, and also from the Boys and Girls Club. We received a letter of support on that too. I wanted to just mention that for the record.
Great.
This is Mr. Norden in the back, if you don't know him. Any further? No. They're both on here, actually. It's these two.
Same two guys.
And no one else wanted to speak today? I think it's good. Okay, all right, very good. All right, anything else? Planning commissioners? No? Okay. I'm open to a motion.
I would make a motion to approve CUP 07-003 Front Range Aggregates Parkdale Pit major modification, and that would include waivers of lighting and landscaping. That's the only waivers, isn't that correct?
And we have contingencies of the changes to the site plan and the DRRMS permit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that. Thanks.
And the conditions, we have to satisfy the conditional use permit, criteria, but I think they've been covered, so I think we should note that that's taken care of.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Second.
Got a second from John. Any further discussion? All right, Larry?
Aye.
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 Thanks for being good neighbors
Thanks,
up there,
gentlemen.
and keep it up. Okay, thank you. Any other business before the planning commission? Can't find my- We are adjourned.